Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for news stories from YellowCat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. What's your nightmare HOA story? Other way around. I helped a customer stand up to their HOA and win. I worked as a team supervisor for DirecTV at this time. Most of my duties were administrative, but if anyone on my team had an escalated call, supervisor requested, then those were my job too. One of my agents got a call, and from what he told me, the customer immediately requested a supervisor that he needed someone with more authority than a frontline service rep, even though my agent could have handled this. So I take the call, and the guy is frantic and asking me for help. He's been going rounds with his HOA over the placement of his satellite dish. As it turned out, due to various obstructions, the only way his dish could be installed and maintain a quality signal was to be pole-mounted. So it's on a pole in his side yard instead of on the roof/side of the house. The HOA had deemed that a violation and fined him. Then they threatened further proceedings against him when he refused to pay. Something about violation of the HOA covenant agreement or some such nonsense like that. They had shown up this day to further the issue, and he decided to call us and see if there was anything we could do. Oh yes, there was. I asked if I could speak to the HOA rep that was in his home, and he was more than pleased to let me handle it. After introducing myself and whatnot, I informed the HOA rep that it is a violation of federal law to deny the homeowner the placement of their dish if that is the only place it could be installed to get a high quality signal. The HOA rep instantly starts trying to tell me what's what when I just rattled off over the Air Reception Device Rule of Telecommunications Act 1996. What? The OTARD rule. It's a part of the act I just named that explicitly forbids the restriction of placement of a signal reception device if that is the only feasible installation option. In short, you can't make him remove it, and if you force it, he has options. I couldn't literally say that he can take you to court since I'm not one of the corporate lawyers, but the point was made clear enough. He just handed the phone back to my customer and left the house. The customer was so freaking excited. You have no idea how much of a hassle this has been, fighting with them over this for months. The threats of fines, etc. Thank you so much. A victory for the little guy. FHOAs and their power-tripping little sycophants. I would sit in my yard with my dog between 4 and 6 p.m. every Friday for 3 months. Why? Because the HOA would measure my grass every effing Friday. My lawn guy was the best and I refused to switch. However, he could only come on Saturday. HOA let us choose which day we inspected. Everyone voted for Saturdays. They secretly vetoed it and came Fridays, but claimed it was Saturday they were coming. To prove this, I sat with my dog every Friday waiting for him. He would park, wait a while, then go to another street and measure there. My street was the only one who didn't receive fines for breaking the agreement. It became a party when everyone figured out what I was doing. People would cook out in the front and we would all go throw on coals and food as needed. I got reported for something or other after the 3-month marker, so I brought my supercut 3 months of time-stamped videos and submitted them to the HOA distribution list before I went to meet with them. There were 40 to 50 people there because we had organized a day to go and air grievances. It was maybe the best time I ever spent with any HOA. Rented a house in an HOA. It wasn't too bad, just normal stuff, but every now and then, some board members would tool around and hand out fines for dirty driveways and such. Wouldn't have cared if the president and a board member didn't live on the same street as me and their driveways were in massive disrepair. The board member's son did some work on his truck and there was a massive oil spill, partly covered with a red towel that sat there for 8 months. While a few rust-colored streaks on our concrete was worthy of a fine. The funniest was when the HOA decided to install very aggressive speed bumps. The ones that were there previously were fine, graded to not be too jarring but required you to slow down. The only accident that occurred while we were there was the spouse of an HOA board member driving drunk and plowing into a tree, but there were always notices and mailings for people to slow down as this is not a racetrack. I guess they felt adding in a couple of literal asphalt curbs in the middle of the street would show people who dared to drive over 10 miles per hour on the main road. The only way over these things without feeling like you were going to break something on your car was to ease up the first side, come to a complete stop, then slowly ease down the drop. Once for the front wheels, another for the rear. Some people had just taken to driving on the grass around them, so they put up concrete barriers there. After a few weeks, someone decided to pour diesel fuel on the speed bumps the day before the garbage trucks did their rounds. The speed bumps got completely destroyed. The HOA reinstalled the bumps and somehow made them even more aggressive. And a week later, Captain Diesel struck again. They yanked them out again and just paved over the holes. It was beautiful. They did end up installing speed bumps a few months later, but they went with the stock plastic ones that bolt to the street, which was much more preferable to the man-made cliffs of Dover that were there previously. Other way around, my mom was the president of the HOA for her backwoods little neighborhood. Maybe 30 people lived there. Everyone used one well. The well had a problem once, so no one had water. It was $800 for a temporary fix or $2,000 for a permanent fix. My mom had a meeting where out of the 30 people, 5 showed up. No big deal, those 5 people funded the $800 to get it fixed since they've been without water for almost a week. No one would split the cost and dues were so low it didn't cover them, so 5 people paid for everyone's well. Well, in preparation for the actual fix, she tried to raise money but only got halfway there when it broke. My mom went door to door asking for everyone's share before they'd fix it. It was like $50. It was another week without water. No one would pay for the well they all used. Finally, around half of the neighborhood raised the money to fix it. Later, they all had a huge barbecue at my parents' house, but the people who didn't pay weren't invited. Mother-in-law was fighting stage 4 ovarian cancer a few years ago. Had no desire to take down our Christmas lights. We were constantly visiting the hospital, was very touch and go. Had a child under 1. Was a very emotional time. HOA compliance officer constantly would stop at our house at all hours of the day. We had security cameras, so finally, after reviewing the footage, we called the guard shack to see what the emergency was. We were told that Christmas had been over 3 weeks and we needed to have our lights down before the end of the month, or he would fine us $25 a day for the first week, then $50 each day after that. We explained the situation and the guy said, "Well, it's not my problem, take your lights down." My wife exploded on the D-bag, went to the next board meeting and let loose on the board and general manager. Turns out it wasn't an HOA policy. The guy worked for the security company that was hired to work the main entrance guard shack and would get a bonus if he would patrol and hand out fines for HOA violations. This a-hole would just drive around and make up his own rules and fines, and by the next meeting was fired, and a new security company was hired when the contract was up in the summer. Everything worked out in the end. De-fired, mother-in-law cancer-free for over a year. We had the HOA president from the Third Reich. This man is on such a power trip, you'd think he was running a massive gulag with the lives of 1 million peasants at his disposal. He protects even the most trivial information as if it were top secret intelligence and dispenses his own brand of justice with no regard for the actual rules. And he's a liar. At the last general HOA meeting, we sat for 40 solid minutes while he regaled us with his vague BS stories about his years as a Special Forces officer in the United States Army. According to him, he's been shot twice, held for ransom in an undisclosed foreign H-hole, and awarded top-secret military honors that he isn't allowed to talk about. Here's the thing though, he's maybe 5'5", weighs at least 350 pounds, didn't know how to break down the gym weightlifting equipment and made a complete A of himself by saluting a neighbor who came to the meeting late, still wearing his BDUs. The neighbor, who works at the nearby military base, laughed out loud and said, "Dude, I'm an E4. Guess who got written up for leaving his garbage cans out?" Obligatory not me, but my best friend. My best friend, S, grew up in suburban Arizona. His family owned their home and rarely had problems with their HOA other than it being generally fascist. It all started with some cardboard boxes. S and his sister, at the ripe age of around 6 or 7, wanted to make a fort in their front yard. Their dad, being the great guy he was, helped them build an S cardboard fort for them to play in. Being kids, they played in the fort for a couple hours and proceeded to get distracted elsewhere. Not a day later, they received posted notices on the door and phone calls informing them they needed to clean the unsightly garbage out of their yard or be faced with fines. It wasn't a huge deal, but left the family a bit jaded towards the HOA. Fast forward a handful of years later, S's dad decides he wants to paint the house. Now, if you don't know, most HOAs have strict rules on the color and send templates for you to pick off of. He said the templates ranged from tan to slightly different tan. S's dad finds a color he likes that's more of a greenish tan and sends it, paints the whole house. The HOA proceeds to have a meltdown because they painted their house outside of the allowed color spectrum. S's dad says, "No effing way, it's basically the same color. I'm not repainting my entire house." So the HOA hires a contractor to come down with a paint color tester and posts notices on their door with a detailed analysis of how his color is Yucatan and doesn't fit the spectrum, and if they don't repaint by the end of the month, they will be fined. Instead of folding, S's mom finds out when the next meeting is and discovers no one votes. The same dude has been president of the HOA for way too long, and there is some shady S going on in terms of contracting. So she walks around the neighborhood the next few weeks campaigning and runs. She wins by a landslide. Largest turnout for an HOA meeting since its inception. Apparently, everyone was also sick and tired of the BS but just bent over. So S's mom is elected president and discovers that the previous regime was doing the old hook up my son-in-law by contracting his company and pay him stupid amounts of money to water the sand wash BS. She quickly ends all that S. Rather than change any rules other than a few stupid ones, the S family office just decided to refuse to enforce any of them. S's mom goes years as president. Recently, she decided F it and didn't show up to the election and someone else got elected. Now the new guy is trying to enforce the old rules, but everyone is so used to the freedom, there is an effing war going on. Thank you for watching. Guys, thank you for all of the support and likes. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. See you next time.